I'd like to tell you a couple of stories about Christmas. One when I was a little girl and one when I was a mother. When I was in the 4th grade, all the boys and girls in my class had fountain pens. Now, fountain pens were not like the kind of pens that we use today. They had a little clip on the side and a rubber tube that went up inside of them, and you had to have a bottle of ink. And you'd put the pinpoint down in the ink, and then you'd pull down the little clip, and that would suck the ink up into the little rubber tube, and then it would write as long as the ink lasted, and then you'd have to fill it again. Well, all the boys and girls in my class had real, honest-to-goodness fountain pens that you had to fill with ink. And I didn't have one, and I wanted a fountain pen very bad. Well, it was Christmas, so I told my mother and daddy that all I wanted for Christmas was a new fountain pen. And my grandmother Brannon heard me ask for it. And so later she told my mother, "Connie, don't worry about getting Joanie a fountain pen. I have a fountain pen for her." Now, my grandmother Brannon was an odd kind of grandmother. She always gave used presents. And that's what I remember her for. In fact, we still have a used present that she gave Wendy one time. It's a kind of a bell. And it had perfume in it once, but when she gave it to Wendy, it only had a little bit of perfume in it, and now that you all have played with it, there isn't any perfume left in it. Well, she always gave used presents, and Mother should have probably known that and thought twice about Grandmother saying she'd give me the fountain pen, but she didn't. Mother instead would go at night, and she'd sew while I was in bed asleep so that it could be a surprise for me. And for Christmas, she made me a little dresser, and she put a little red checkered skirt around the dresser. And then it was for a doll. And then she made a little doll bed, and she put a canopy on the bed and a pretty little bedspread made out of red checkered curtains. And then she made the things to put in my bedroom. There was a dresser in my bedroom, and she made a skirt to go around it to match the doll's dresser. And she made little curtains and a bedspread to go on my bed that matched it. She worked very hard night after night after night so that she'd have that to give for me for Christmas. So that was under the Christmas tree, and so was the present from my grandmother, who gave used presents. Well, my grandmother's present was in a big box, and so, of course, since everybody knew that that was my fountain pen and that was what I wanted most, they handed me the big box, and I thought to myself, what could be in this great big box? I opened it up, and inside was a very large, very old jewelry box. Now, this box was as long as my arm from the elbow to the tips of my fingers, and it was covered in royal blue velvet, and it had some brass trimming which had gotten rusty, and there were also some spots on it where the velvet had worn off because it was used. And my grandmother said, "Open it up, Joanie, open it up." When I opened it up, sitting on a satin royal blue lining was a bright orange fountain pen. Now, it wasn't a lady's fountain pen. A lady's fountain pen would have been very narrow at the top and little. This was a man's fountain pen. It had a flat top. It was very large. It was round. It was orange. It was ugly. But I picked it up, and I was so excited to finally have a fountain pen. I went over to my daddy's desk and opened the ink well, and I put the fountain pen point down in the ink, and I pulled down the little lever on the side and thought I was filling the fountain pen. What I didn't know was that the rubber tubing had a hole in it, so no ink was going in, but I didn't know that. And then I took the fountain pen out, and I got out a piece of paper, and I began to write with it. Well, the point on the fountain pen was so old it was split, so it made 2 marks on the paper everywhere I wrote. I knew that I had for Christmas an old, used, ugly, orange, broken fountain pen, and I was sick. I didn't stop to look at anything else that was under the tree. I just ran upstairs to my bedroom and threw myself across my bed, and I cried like my heart was broken. And actually it was. Well, my daddy was very upset about all this, and he got in his car, and he went out, and in those days, kids, the stores didn't stay open on Sunday, and they didn't stay open on holidays, and he drove all over the city of Orlando till he finally found one drugstore that had stayed open in case somebody needed medicine in an emergency on Christmas Day. And he went into the drugstore, and he found a fountain pen, and he brought it back, and it was a lovely, lady's, brand new, pretty fountain pen. But you know what? My Christmas was ruined. And even when my daddy brought me the new pen, I just couldn't get real excited about any of it. But you know what was even sadder than that? It took me a couple of years to realize it, but somebody else's Christmas was ruined that day. My mother's Christmas was ruined. She'd worked very, very hard, sewing night after night while I was asleep so she could give me a surprise on Christmas morning. But I was so upset over the fountain pen that my mother never got to see my eyes light up, or my face smile, or the excitement of a little girl who was, for the first time, getting matching curtains and a matching bedspread and matching dresser and bed for her doll. I didn't show any excitement over Mama's gift. I was too upset over getting a used, ugly, orange, broken fountain pen. It spoiled Christmas for me, but it makes me feel even sadder today to know that it spoiled Christmas for my mother, too. We need to be not so interested in what we're going to get as in maybe what somebody else has worked hard to be able to give. When I was much older and I was married to Papa and I had 2 children of my own. Now, I didn't have Wendy yet, but Sharon and Joanie's daddy, Davy, was about 6 years old, and Michael and Matthew's mother, Jan, was about 4. And Papa and I didn't have a whole lot of money either. And I'd been saving because we lived about an hour then from the city of Orlando. We lived in Sanford. And I wanted to take Davy and Jan into Orlando. I wanted us to be able to go to a Christmas movie, and then I wanted us to go see Santa Claus, and then I wanted us to go to supper. And so I'd been saving grocery money till I finally had enough for the 3 of us to do those things. We drove all the way into town. The kids were all excited. This was a big moment, not only to be able to go all the way into town, but everything was decorated up for Christmas, and we were going to go to the movies. We just didn't get to do that very often. We went to see the movie, and it was so much fun, and we came out, and we were having such a jolly time. We went across the street to the big department store, and they sat on Santa's lap, and I think I have a picture somewhere with Jan and Davy sitting on Santa Claus's lap, telling him what they wanted for Christmas. And when we had finished doing that, we went across the street to eat supper, and we were going to eat supper at Morrison's Cafeteria. Now, that's when you go down the line, and you pick out whatever you want to eat. And I told the children that they couldn't get more than they could eat, that whatever they picked out, they'd have to eat, but they could pick anything they wanted. I probably picked shrimp because I loved Morrison's fried shrimp. And I don't know, but maybe I got a dessert that was their icebox pie because I liked that too. And we sat down at our table and we ate our dinner and we talked about the movie and about seeing Santa Claus, and the meal was over and I picked up the little ticket that they give you that tells you how much you must pay, and I went up to the counter to pay my bill, and I opened up my pocketbook and I was horrified. My wallet was gone. All of my money had been stolen, probably while we were sitting in the dark in the movie theater. The money that I had saved for supper was gone. I didn't have any money to pay for the meal. And I looked up at the lady behind the counter and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Somebody's stolen my wallet. I don't have any money." And not only that, the key to the car was in the change purse of my wallet. We didn't have any way to get home. And I looked at her and I said, "They've stolen my wallet." And she looked back at me like she didn't believe a word I was saying. And I thought, I'll bet a lot of people come to Morrison's and eat their supper and then say somebody's stolen their money. She thinks I'm lying to her. What am I going to do? And I didn't want to spoil the day for Davy and Jan. I didn't want them to know what kind of trouble we were in, but I didn't know what in the world I was going to do about it. I was just sick. It had ruined our lovely day. And the lady said, "Well, I'll have to call the manager." And oh, my heart just sank. I thought, now I'm going to have to tell him this story, and he isn't going to believe me either. Well, the manager came over, and he said, "What seems to be the problem?" And I said, "Oh, Mr. Manager, I've been saving for weeks from the grocery money for my 2 children and I to come into town and go to the movies and see Santa Claus and come to Morrison's to dinner. And we came. But while we were in the movie, somebody must have stolen my wallet because it's gone and I don't have any money to pay this bill with, and I know you don't believe me, but it's the truth." And he looked at me and he said, "Aren't you Joanie Book?" And I said, "No, sir, I'm Joanie Grimm." But he said, "Weren't you Joanie Book before you got married?" And I said, "Oh, yes, sir, yes. I was Joanie Book before I got married." And he said, "And didn't you work down at First Christian Church as the music director?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I did." And he said, "Didn't you every single Sunday morning at 7 o'clock come to Morrison's cafeteria and lead the singing for all of the waiters and the waitresses and the cooks and the servers so that we could have devotions on Sunday and have prayer with us before you went to church to do your job?" And I said, "Well, yes, sir. That's true, I did. That's been 6 years ago. But it's true." "Well," he said, "you know, Joanie, when you did that, we never had a chance to pay you anything for it. And now's our chance to pay you for coming every Sunday morning and having devotions with us. So," he said, "you just don't worry about the meal. The meal is on the house. Morrison's cafeteria will gladly pay for yours and the 2 children's dinner." And then he said, "Now, is there anything else that I can do for you? Do you have any other problems?" Oh, kids, I was so relieved. Oh, I was so thankful. You know what? I get tears in my eyes when I think about this story because I was scared to death. And you know, I didn't like to get up early and go to Morrison's at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was a teenager when I was doing that, and teenagers don't like to get up early. I didn't really want to go over to Morrison's cafeteria and lead all of those people in singing and prayers. I'd have much rather stayed in my nice, warm, cuddly bed and just gotten up in time to go to church and do my job. But I was awfully glad I had done it, because then when I was in trouble and needed Morrison's, Morrison's was coming to my help. And I told the man that the key to the car was in my wallet. And he said, "Listen, young lady, you just take your sweet children and you go in and sit down in the waiting room. And I'll call the car company and I'll have a key made, and we'll see to it that you get a key to your car and home safely tonight." Oh, boys and girls, it started out to be such a happy, happy Christmas afternoon, and then it turned into a very frightening experience, but it ended in a very happy way, because I'd done something for somebody else a long time ago. Now they were there to help me when I was in a lot of trouble. It pays, kids, to do nice things for other people.